Jack Sock pulled off the rare pro pickleball, Nasty Nelson, and here's what he had to say about it.
Everybody's already on Instagram or on Twitter and everything saying that I was upset. I'm not upset. It's part of the game. It's a strategy. We're homies, so no, it's all love. I always think people are mad when they try that. It's just tactic, you know. Love you, Steven. My bad. It's all love, baby.
And I think we just need to make a decision. Is the Nasty Nelson a viable play, or is it only something you do when you're really butthurt? I mean, Jack Sock said, I'm not upset. And if I wanted to be disingenuous, I could just cut out the part where he said, I'm not upset.
He's saying that I was upset. I'm not upset.
To make it look like he really might be upset. But still, is this a valid play? Or, is there more to it? Are we like baseball, where there are so many unwritten rules? Or are you able to use the rulebook to its full extent, to try and win rallies? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be recapping the PPA Orange County Cup. This was out in San Clemente this past week. We'll also get to a brief little preview of MLP, which will be at the same venue. And as always, we've got a ton of charts, so stick around for that if you're into that sort of thing. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Let's go ahead and roll the intro music and get right back into the action.
Thank goodness for Matty Pickles.
And alongside Matty Pickles, I'm Michelle McMahon.
Well, first of all, I can't even believe I'm standing beside you, Matty. This is hard for me.
Is that Matty Pickles?
Matty Pickles.
Matty Pickles.
Matty Pickles, what's up?
Usually you have a canine.
Basil, here we go. There he is.
What do the charts say? The numbers, what do they mean?
Random charts and stats.
He's crushing the statistical analysis stuff is sick, too.
This is absurd. This is so stupid.
The world's worst pickleball player, but he's got a really good podcast.
The only pickleball YouTuber that I actually watch.
Jumping right back into the action, we have the most viral crash out in professional pickleball history. This one got picked up by TMZ, and you can't really blame them. I mean, the easy way to make fun of pickleball is to say, we're not real athletes. It's kind of a joke. When you have a guy behaving like this, and that he can't even snap the paddle, you know what? Yeah, okay. I think that's fair play. Also, we've seen this 6-0 commercial with Zane Ford about 1,000 times.
They wonder if I respect the game. I always have. They tell me to be nicer on the court. I'm not here to make friends. Will I ever change? Respectfully, I'ma just stay me.
And I was going back and forth trying to decide, does this make this commercial better or worse? And I kind of think it makes it a little bit better. I mean, this is consistent branding, and at the end of the day, this is just a guy who's very passionate. I mean, I guess we'll take that over somebody who doesn't care. Sticking with singles, we have Ben Johns, who lost the first game to relatively unknown, in fact, completely unknown to me, Rafa Lenhard. And it looks like Ben is going to take control. He's let the other guy have his fun, but it's time for him to do his thing. Only after a few missed returns, all of a sudden, scoreboard pressure getting applied. Things are starting to get a little bit close here, and what would be a deciding game, too, if Rafa can complete the comeback. And that ATP will certainly help. Pulls within one, ties it up with that passing shot down the line. Ben would save a match point, and now a chance to tie it up for himself. We get into a little bit more cat and mouse. People talk all about cat and mouse. It's completely dead. We're just playing mini tennis, but we still get some insane rallies like this. What a finish for Ben Johns there to tie it up. He's going to earn his own match point. He puts the third shot into the net. Rafa gets the serve back. He is able to tie it up. And yet another missed return from Ben Johns would set up another match point for Rafa. And if you only saw one rally of this match, it was probably this one right here. Check out right here. Ben thinks this was a double bounce. We can't really tell from that angle we're given. We'll get an alternate angle in just a second. But ultimately, after Ben dumps this one into the net, that would decide it. Take a look, another look at this one. You just can't really tell. We don't have enough pixels. We don't have enough frames. But still, that was the deciding moment. And Ben Johns eliminated round of 64. We're going to keep things moving. I'm not going to talk about every single match. I would highly recommend you check out the Sorry Not Sorry podcast if you somehow haven't seen that before. Chris Calley, friend of the channel, does a great job recapping. And where I might have him beat with some of the charts and stats, he does a lot more clips, and honestly, he's just funnier than me. So make sure to check him out. But I do have a few more highlight packages just from a few of the matches that caught my eye or interested me. Here we've got a mixed doubles quarterfinal between Klinger and Humberg versus Alshon and Tuianotoa, and check out CJ Klinger's serve. This is going to become a point of contention during this match. Also, keep an eye on the scoreboard. Note that I am not editing out any clips from the opening sequence here. So look, it's hard to tell from the angle we have here, slow motion look at it, but that serve does look like the release point might be a little high. But hey, that should actually be a good thing for Christian Alshon. He's a guy with a big serve too. The only problem is you actually have to get on serve for that to matter. Now take a look too. I'm putting dots down wherever CJ's serve is going, where the return is going. Nice deep serves, very consistently deep. Getting mid to shallow returns always helps. I mean, it basically just negates the advantage that the returners have. Guys, it was 8-0-2 before we finally got the first side out of this game. This is the Texas Rangers mixed doubles team, at least as of the time of this game. After this event, Eda Tuianotoa was traded off of the Texas Rangers, and I mean, there was just some bad vibes in this match between this duo of Alshon and Tuianotoa.
Technical warning, ball abuse.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Christian's ass. Yeah, he's complaining about the location of the serve.
We ended up having a little bit of a delay as Christian called in the head ref, Don Stanley. There was some discussion about potentially changing out the refs, but ultimately we just played on. Here we can get one closer look at the serve. Doesn't really look like anything to me, but hey, maybe he's cleaned it up now that he knows it's being watched. Still, once you call in the head ref, it just feels like things aren't going to go your way. Your headspace isn't going to be in the right place. There's CJ Klinger with the Ernie body bag on Christian Alshon. And yeah, the 28 seed, Klinger and Humberg, are going to end up taking down Alshon and Tuianotoa. Now, I know once again I'm jumping all over the place here, but we're going to take a look at our featured event, which is men's doubles for this week. Men's doubles is just in such an interesting spot. It really feels like we've settled in on a big four. This first semifinal features Johns Tardio versus Alshon Daescu, and there's a fun little firefight with a little Ernie mid-firefight from Ben Johns. How about that? And after this Alshon dink into the net, I want to highlight one of the patterns that really jumped out to me. This kind of off-speed, cross-court speed-up at Gabe Tardio, which is going to get us into a firefight here that Tardio and Johns are going to end up winning. It just felt like it was not a winning pattern for Alshon and Daescu, but they still kept trying to find it. Johns and Tardio would take game one, and here's another look at that speed-up I'm talking about before. I want to talk real quick about some production value best practices. It just feels like the crane cam is maybe going a little too wild for me here on some of these rallies. I don't mind riding with the crane cam the whole way, but just, maybe try to keep it a little more steady. But back to the pickleball after some dinking, again, this just doesn't seem like the right play. And a few rallies later, sure enough, Johns and Tardio able to get the win. They will be advancing to Championship Sunday, where they will face the winner of Staxrud and Patrick Quinn versus J.W. Johnson and C.J. Klinger. And this one would be defined by one specific pattern, and you really don't need any fancy dink circle overlays, but I did it anyway. You're going to find out very quickly that Patrick Quinn and Staxford are just going to send a lot of dinks over to J.W. Johnson's backhand. My little dink circles in the top right, anytime there's a yellow circle, that is a dink that bounced. A red circle is a dink that was taken out of the air, and neither of these teams were too eager to take dinks out of the air. And this particular strategy felt like something we saw a lot more last year, maybe even 2 years ago, where teams would just put every single dink there. And I mean, it makes sense. That is the safest spot on the court for you. You have CJ Klinger who can maybe do a little bit more off the backhand, especially with two hands. Dead dinks to the middle are going to be at risk of JW's forehand speed up. And I mean, you can't really speed up too much at this team because their hands are just so good themselves. Now, talking about the actual game that's happening here, not just the strategy, we can see that CJ Klinger and JW Johnson lost the first game, but they are starting to run away with game two here maybe a little bit. After that dink into the net, we have got a game point for CJ and J-Dub. And we talked about that Alshon kind of off-speed speed up. And here's Federico Staxford trying it on CJ Klinger, and he's going to find a little bit of success down the stretch here in this game. And I don't even want to tell you how long it took for me to make these. Some of these dink rallies were really freaking long, but hopefully you get the point by now. But the reason I left this one in is because I just wanted to illustrate, like, you're not getting freebies from J-Dub that frequently, and still, when you're trying to attack, like, there's nothing easy. You have to be patient. This one almost looks like a replay of the same thing we saw earlier. CJ counters cross court when Hayden comes over too far towards the middle. Down by two now, Federico Staxford is going to go for that same kind of off-speed shot right down the middle, and nobody is home. After another extended sequence of backhanded dinks for J.W. Johnson, they finally get one that's attackable, and this time they're ready on the counter. CJ Klinger sends it deep, and we've got a tie ball game. And I said freebies are rare, but that doesn't mean you don't get one occasionally. Here, J.W. Johnson, when they get the serve back, puts this one into the net. It's definitely not the most exciting brand of pickleball, but, I mean, is this the way we're going to see teams start to play JW and CJ? He's better than he was last year on these shots on the backhand. And here, after icing out CJ, they get a freebie off of him. But when the counters are so good on the other side of the net, you just have to be patient. At 10-10 on defense, J.W. Johnson is going to go for the backhand flick, the flick wizard. However, Federico Saxford is there on the counter. And on 11-10, again, Crane Cam going a little wonky here for match point, but there you have it. Hayden and Fed will advance to face Johns Tardio in the final. And on the very first rally on Championship Sunday, we get Hayden Patriquin body bagging Ben Johns. We know Ben Johns doesn't like to be body bagged. Will there be retaliation? Nothing egregious in this one, but we jump ahead now to 10-10 in game one. Really feels like Hayden and Fed need to take this one. They need to stay ahead in the game flow, in the match flow. And they would do exactly that before dropping the next two, winning the fourth, setting up a deciding fifth game. Stacks and Big H got off to a hot start. Here, another high speed up from Hayden gets Ben. And here, another body bag on Ben. However, that 3-1 lead in hot start would not last long as Johns and Tardio were able to exploit the stack being unwound from Hayden and Fed. Here we have a pair of rallies with relatively short returns from Hayden Patriquin, not giving him enough time to get up to the kitchen. Up 4-3, Gabe Tardio is going to find some offense. He's got that little flick. That was an awfully low ball to attack, but he still manages to do it. Pair of missed returns here from Hayden Patriquin. All of a sudden, this one's starting to get a little bit ugly. At 9-3, we're going to look for a speed up off the bounce. Ben Johns is all over it. And again, at 10-3, Hayden, shallow return, can't quite get all the way to the kitchen line, just sends it deep. Ben Johns and Gabe Tardio take home the gold. Let's take a look at all the other results. So in women's doubles, Annalie Waters and Anna Bright took home the gold medal, once again defeating their exes, Rachel Rohrabacher and Catherine Parento, and Hurricane Tyra Black and Paris Todd took home the bronze over Dazan and Humberg. And this, of course, is notable for the New Jersey Fives because Mari Humberg was recently reacquired after they had to drop her in the offseason. So they now also still have Megan Dazan and Mari Humberg. That's the PPA semifinal team. I mean, could we maybe see Annalie Waters get some rest down the stretch? If that 1 or 2 seed is kind of feeling out of reach, maybe you just trot out this lineup against some of those low-end teams. I still feel pretty confident in my ability to at least get that women's doubles win. One other notable women's doubles result was 36-seeded Ting Che Wei and Yufei Long made a quarterfinal run. They defeated Georgia Johnson and Lacey Schneeman in the round of 32. And then moving on to mixed doubles, we saw Ben and Annalie get back on top. Remember, they lost the last final to Georgia and JW back in North Carolina before the MLP break. Well, they got revenge this time, winning in 3 games pretty easily. The St. Louis Shocks duo of Anna Bright and Hayden Patriquin round out the mixed doubles podium, taking home bronze. They defeated Klinger Humberg, who we saw earlier. So, guys, we had Mari Humberg in Challenger League in MLP, and she just made semifinals in both doubles events. What the hell was she doing in Challenger League? In women's singles, to no surprise, Annalie Waters took home gold. So yes, that does make it a triple crown, but what was a little bit surprising is she faced Catherine Parento in the finals. Catherine Parento, the 7-seed, defeated 2-seeded Kate Fahey in the quarterfinals, and then 10-seeded Judith Castillo took home the bronze, defeating Brooke Buckner. In men's singles, we talked about the early upset for number 4-seed Ben Johns, but the other top seeds, 1, 2, and 3, would all make the podium. 2-seed Hunter Johnson would defeat Federico Staxford in the final, and this is pretty interesting. They are now tied in the 2025 points race. Now, this is different than what is actually used for seeding. That is the 52-week window. But in just the points race, they are tied. Hunter Johnson now also becomes the first player to win 3 gold medals in singles this year. Look at the logjam we have in singles at the top. So many players have won 2. Hunter Johnson now stands above the rest. Is he the best singles player on the planet? Rounding out the podium in men's singles was Connor Garnett defeating Christian Alshon. And then 2 other notes. Man of the hour, Rafa Lenhard did make it all the way to the corners. He took down Zane Navratil and Noe Cliff in addition to the upset over Ben Johns. And James Ignatowicz in the quarterfinals in singles. I feel like it's been a while since we've seen that. Good for him. We're going to have a little continuity issue as Basil the dog, seen sleeping right here, bumped into my little setup and knocked over this paddle. And speaking of this paddle, this is the Austin Pickle Ranch paddle that I was supposed to give away to whoever won my March Madness pool. Of course, I ended up winning that, so I got to keep the paddle. But I'm kind of thinking it might be fun to do another giveaway sometime soon. So if you're in town, make sure to check out the Austin Pickle Ranch. I'm probably supposed to mention it is owned and operated by my dad. Yeah, let's just pretend like they're an actual sponsor and not just, Nepo baby bullshit. Now it is time for my personal favorite part of these videos. Fun with pickleball charts. This is the stuff that I'm really passionate about. If you can't tell, I just like taking data and, telling a story with it. So big shout out to Andrew over at Pickle Wave. He has, done whatever it is he does and sent me his big block of data. I've done my Excel BS. And here we have year-to-date comparisons for each of the 5 disciplines. Let's start off with men's doubles. Over here we have the top stock risers and stock fallers. And on the fallers, I did mean to filter out Thomas Wilson. Absolutely no disrespect is intended there. Looking at our stock risers, we have CJ Klinger and Andre Diescu, Gabe Tardio, Christian Alshon, Hayden Patriquin. These are all kind of members of the new Big Four. Also, I do think it's interesting that in the first half of the year, we kind of saw a lot of partner hopping between this crew. Andre and CJ won a gold. Andre and Ben won a gold. Ben and Gabe have now won 3 golds. Andre and Christian have won a few golds. Fed and Hayden actually haven't won any gold medals yet, but they're winning a hell of a lot of silvers and are making it to the finals very consistently. In fact, here's the partnership web that I created. This is just connecting who you've partnered with. The larger the line is how many points you've earned with that partner. And you can see it's a total mess. But my whole point for bringing this up again is that the first half of the year for men's doubles was kind of all over the place with partnerships, but kind of starts to feel like maybe we've settled into these Big Four, these teams. Maybe even Deckel and Dylan, the big Ds, when they're fully healthy. Maybe they're just on the outside fringe. They're kind of like in the next tier. Speaking of Dylan Frazier and Deckel Barr, they both are over here in our kind of stock fallers. These are the players with the largest drop-off year-to-date in points. Dylan Frazier in the post-J.W. Johnson era just hasn't been getting to the podium as consistently. And of course, the same can be said for Colin Johns in the post-Ben era. And just a real quick note too about my methodology before we jump to any crazy conclusions, which I guess I kind of already did. I did tie these out for 249 of the top 250 across all the disciplines. There was one exception, and you can read about it here, but it's not really important. Also note, I am not capturing any PPA Challenger points, and do take a look. This is the window of events being included in this year-to-date analysis. Moving on to women's doubles, here we've got the same exact charts. The biggest single stock riser is Hurricane Tyra Black, and yeah, that feels right. Remember though, she didn't play all the PPAs at the beginning of last year. She had a brief little stint with the APP, as did JW, Georgia, Gabe, and Millie Rain. Another thing to keep in mind with these, Paris Todd's another name in that boat. But the most surprising name to me here in this PPA women's doubles stock risers group was Elise Jones. I don't know why. If I just had to guess who's having the best year-to-date improvement, she's not a name that immediately would have jumped out to me. But when we take a deeper dive, yeah, she's having a great year in women's doubles. And you look at the success that they're having in Major League Pickleball and the Utah Black Diamonds. Now, it's relative. They're 9th place. They're not, setting the world on fire or anything. But I think Elise Jones is a big reason for that. In mixed doubles, we see the Johnson siblings are the 2 biggest risers. Remember, again, the whole APP, PPA switchover. And on the other end, in the stock fallers here, again, no disrespect to Thomas Wilson, but it is interesting to note that his absence has also led to Vivian David's drop-off as well. And we see Ben Johns and Annalie Waters are also stock fallers, but they're really not going anywhere, but they've just suffered a few more losses up to this point than they had last year. In men's singles, we talked about this, but Fed and Hunter are tied at number 1 with 6,800 points in this points race. Hunter Johnson is the biggest stock riser because, like we talked about earlier, just didn't play any PPAs until the back half of the year for the most part. And the single biggest stock faller is Federico Staxford. And he's still tied for first place, so he's still really freaking good. It's just he was really dominant last year. And there's going to be a lot made about this whole Yola Adidas switch-up situation. For those of you who don't know, he switched to Adidas, but that partnership has run its course, so he's back to Yola paddles. We can see he was pretty much just untouchable up to the semifinals in 2024, and in 2025, that just hasn't been the case. Of course, we saw him lose to Alex Crum a few tournaments ago. And then we also do have to mention Ben Johns here as a stock faller, just losing in the round of 64 himself. The last one we'll look at here is in women's singles. Annalie Waters is just about right on pace from last year. Kate Fahey is by far the biggest stock riser. Again, she didn't go full-time pickle till the back half of the year. Caitlin Christian, Lena Jansen, Paris Todd. Now we're going to move on to some medal tracking charts. Here we have a look at the all-time PPA medal count, and I've actually got an animated version of this. Let's take a look. Now, this is a good time for me to tell you about another sponsor of mine, Bodie Pickleball. These are my personal favorite grips. They're the only pickleball grip approved by Basil the dog, so check those out. If you want to get a 15% discount, you can use code MattyPickles at checkout. And this is also a great moment to give a shout out to my members. You can become a $1 a month Basil buddy. This will get you access to an exclusive video of a day in the life of Basil the dog. You're by no means obligated to do this, but if you do, hey, I appreciate it. And if this screen recording of this graphic was really blurry or you needed more pixels, check out the description where I have a link to this. It'll be much higher resolution. Here's a look at the total medal count for 2025. And here's a look at men's doubles. Again, it does kind of feel like, for as much talk about maybe Ben Johns isn't the best men's doubles player in the world anymore, his resume does stand out above everybody else's right now. Here in women's pro doubles, we can see Anna Bright now has 2 gold medals. Both of those have come with Annalie Waters. Here's a quick look at mixed doubles. Here's men's singles. And if I'm going too fast on these, just go ahead and follow me on Twitter and Instagram, where I will usually end up sharing all of these charts. And lastly, here we've got some other fun little charts. I just think this is a fun way to look at it. Here's a thread I started on Twitter. So if there's any player you want to see a year-over-year comparison for in the next PPA video, drop a comment below and I'll make sure to include them. So that'll do it for our fun with charts, but I do also want to talk about a few other subjects. We talked briefly about the whole Fed Yola thing. I think I've already touched on all the trades by this point in MLP, but I'll give my full thoughts on those in the next video. And then the other big story is that the UPA has announced that contract renegotiations are on the horizon. There's going to be a new payout structure for 2026 and on. So my next big project is going to take this data that we just used for all these lovely charts, and we're just going to run it through whatever payout structures they have and kind of see what that looks like. So I'm hoping by this time next week to be able to share with you how much each player would have made for 2024 and 2025 under what the proposed future payouts are. So if that is something that is interesting to you, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Be sure to follow me everywhere else that I said you could follow me. And let's go ahead and call this a video. We'll do a little Basil outro.